Just going to review some questions on chapters 16 and 17 that I sent to you in the group the other day. And let's pull it up. I hope it was a good exercise for you, the review. Yes? You're laughing.
Yeah, took very much time.
It took a long
For
time.
me.
Yeah, okay. Terrific. Let's start. Chapter 16. Why are joy and unity stressed on Purim? What do you say, David? What did you put down? What did you write down?
Because Haman targeted all the Jewish nation, want to destroy them, and we overcame him and his followers. So and therefore we celebrate in full joy because there was a bad decree upon us, we would all be destroyed, and we survived, and therefore it's a mitzvah to rejoice on that, especially on that day.
Okay.
Bad.
I hear that. Sounds a little general, though. It's not something specifically unique to Purim. That they tried to persecute the Jewish people. Someone else wanted to add to that? Or?
Just as a man's decree targeted our soul and body alike, so to our joy over our salvation should be both spiritual and physical. The decree was aimed against the entire Jewish people. One can learn from the ambition that the unique properties of Israel inherit in every Jew.
Okay, so I think that the main point here is that the decree was not only against our souls; it wasn't a spiritual persecution. It wasn't religious persecution per se. It was actually racial. It was kill them all, their bodies, not only their souls. And so we find that we celebrate specifically with the physical aspects of life, and including meals and drinking wine, and so that's joy. What about unity? Why is unity so significant regarding Purim specifically?
So because Haman wanted to kill all the Jews, no matter if they're old, sick, small, children,
True.
Everybody. So therefore we also celebrate also our unity, that no matter if a Jew is maybe not religious or he's religious, especially on that day, the decree was upon all Jews, not only the religious ones.
Okay, good.
And also the poor, including the poor.
Including the poor people, right? Good. One more. I'm looking for one more, perhaps, source in the Megillah itself, where we see two sources in the Megillah. We see the unity was so central.
Are you referencing the Civil War?
No, I don't know of any Civil War. Civil War, that's Hanukkah.
No. The decree that anyone can kill the Jews, but the Jews can defend themselves.
I understand, but what does that have to do with Jewish unity? That's just vigilante wars, and we had to defend ourselves and fight back.
Maybe to spread out the love and the joy to everyone, to bring it to other people, to make it bigger?
For sure. That's the idea. The question is why specifically Purim? Where do we have a hint to this idea that specifically the Jewish people were perhaps attacked for not being united, and that in order to succeed, we had to be united? So if you look on page 340 at the bottom, he quotes from the Megillah that Haman denounced the Jewish people to Achashverosh, saying they are a divided people. They're scattered, dispersed among all the peoples in all the provinces of the realm. So this was called out as one of our weak points. And then in response, when Esther decides to try to save the Jews, what does she tell Mordechai at the top of page 341? Second quote from the Megillah, from chapter 4, where it says, "Go assemble all the Jews of Shushan." So there's the unity stressed in order to save us as a response to the decree, which might have to do with our disunity. Okay, so it's specifically mentioned by them, and then he mentions also by for re-accepting the Torah. We mentioned yesterday that part of the theme, one of the themes, of Purim is that we accepted the Torah. Here too we need togetherness, like at Har Sinai, and every Jew is important. So there's three reasons really why unity is so central to the holiday of Purim. Okay, number 2. Moshe, what did you get for how much must Matanot Le'Evyonim be fulfilled? Okay.
So I didn't read full sentences, but basically what I said is you have to give 2 gifts to the poor, each one of a certain substantial amount. So like I remember in Shira that you mentioned that for you it's easy, 2 gifts of at least 10 shekels because you can get a falafel with 10 shekels. That's a meal.
That's right. So to 2 separate people. The point is, really, it's 1 gift to one poor person and 1 gift to another poor person. So it can get confusing when you say 2 gifts because it might sound like you're giving to the same person. But really, it's 1 to each, and they have to be 2 receivers, two poor people. Good. Anybody else add something else about how you must give Matanot Le'Evyonim?
Money or food, but not clothes or books.
Good. Money or food, something that can be used right away.
Something that you can use for the Seudah, that's what
Ideally, it doesn't have to be. I know the poor person doesn't. It doesn't have to be food, but money you can go buy food. Right? So that's good.
So did I understand it well when I read if you give 2 gifts to one person, you don't fulfill the...
Correct. Yafeh. Yes, sir.
I noticed there's a very interesting crossover between not Le'Evyonim and Mishloach Manos.
Yes.
And could one hypothetically do one and the same? So, for instance,
good question.
I think to myself, I really can't afford. This is hypothetical. I'm fine with it. I really can't afford to do Mishloach Manos and Matanot Le'Evyonim. Perhaps I could fulfill both at once with one person and then do a second gift to the poor. Or do 2 combination Matanot Le'Evyonim and Mishloach Manos, or is that a problem? So there's just 2 gifts happening at all.
I understand. It's a good question. You could, as long as you give your gift package to a poor person, right, and it has to be given to the poor. Matanot Le'Evyonim, Mishloach Manos can be to somebody who's rich, say a friend, right, who's not in financial difficulty. But you have to find a poor person for Matanot Le'Evyonim. But let's say you have a friend who is a poor person, and you give him not only money, but you give him 2 types of foods, as we're going to see. That's the requirements for Mishloach Manos. So perhaps you're saying we can fulfill both, because in the end of the day, he's poor. He's receiving a gift or money or food. Doesn't have to be money. Food is fine, right? As long as it's not clothing, right? Or dishes or something like that. So the answer is you have to give him double. You have to give him twice, because there's a separate obligation Mishloach Manos and a separate obligation Matanot Le'Evyonim. So you could give them both to the same person, but if you give only 1 food package, so you'll be fulfilling your obligation Mishloach Manos. You probably would have to give him an additional. Maybe if you gave him a 3rd type of food, then that would be Matanot Le'Evyonim. But if you had just the bare minimum of Mishloach Manos to that, even if he happens to be poor, you could choose. It could either be Matanot Le'Evyonim or Mishloach Manos, but you can't kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Excuse the metaphor. You can't make a bird live with 2 in 2 ways with one gift. So I think you have to give the specified gift as long as you have enough there that qualifies as 2 gifts. Well, then it's fine. But not if it doesn't have enough. Natan.
My question was, what if I can't? It's not that I can't find the person who is poor.
Sometimes you can't. We talked about it. I'll ask you the question. What do you do when you can't find the poor person?
I'm assuming you said that, but could I give it to tzedakah, into a tzedakah box?
Good question. What do you say, guys? What did we learn? Can you put some money into the tzedakah box?
Yeah. Hypothetically, yes, but it's preferable not to. It's preferable.
The answer is not at all. Not at all. The mitzvah is that on Purim day, the poor person receives it, and you give it. So you put it in the tzedakah box, it could sit there for a year.
Yes, but you can
Nobody's going to get it. If you take your tzedakah box and give it to someone poor, that's fine. Or what Moshe was suggesting, not necessarily shaliach. Usually the tzedakah man is called the gabai tzedakah, and he knows that his job is people are giving him the money so that he gives it out on Purim. He doesn't keep it for the next half a year till he gets enough money, and then he'll do his deliveries. For that's fine for regular tzedakah all year round, but for Purim, it's got to be given on that day. So either you do it yourself, or you ask someone to do it on your behalf. And just putting it in a tzedakah box is not good enough. If you have no choice, if you're in a desert island, and there's no one else, so put it aside, and when you see a poor person, you'll give it to them. But if most people, we're not on a desert island, and you can,
explain why I asked this question, because
sure.
in where I'm from, in Washington, we have a Chabad, and when we go to Purim,
Mm.
they hand out these little boxes, and they have the
Mishloach manot.
Mishloach manot. They got like a biscuit or some sort of like gift that you can give to someone, and then they also give out a $50, which you give to a charity. Which I'm assuming they, after the event's over, they go out and give it to an organization or something that helps the poor or something.
Right.
That's fine.
Right. Well, it really depends. The person that's receiving it.
Well, I'm saying the congregation puts it into a charity fund. The half shekels, the half.
If the rabbi is running it, probably he knows the laws, and probably he knows that on the day, you can give it to this. He's probably responsible, and he knows that all the what do these organizations do? They don't wait for the money to come in. They make an estimate. Last year, $1,000 came in, so I'm going to be all day. I'll be spending my day delivering $100 to 10 families. Right. Even though the money didn't come in yet, because it's on the account that I imagine that all those people that are appointing me, it doesn't have to be physically the coin that you get from someone gives to the poor. You can interchange that as long as you give it the value. So probably if it's run by a rabbi, he knows that his tzedakah should be.
That's fine though. I can give it to like a charity or like.
Again, you have to specify that you want to give in on the day. The truth is, b'di'evid, if you didn't manage to, as long as you made the effort, you set aside the money towards that. Like I said, on a desert island, you have no choice. I think on some level you do fulfill the requirement of giving the tzedakah, even if it is not received on that day, but it's not ideal. It's not the ideal performance.
There's no kosher homeless people in my area.
Right. Use a fund, and they will.
It's cool if my credit card is charged on Purim. It's like I take care of everything beforehand. I tell them to charge my credit card on Purim.
Yeah, you could do that. It probably makes things difficult for the organization.
No, like let's say there's a Jewish organization that will say, "Hey, we'll charge your credit card on Purim. Just tell us how much you want to give."
Fine, great. It's a good solution. Yeah, there's quite a few of those. It's the way I usually give my matanot le'evyonim. I don't go walking around the streets looking for somebody looking poor, because I could be spending all day long. I live in an upscale neighborhood, relatively. So there's not people living in the street that are poor, although there are plenty of people that are having financial trouble, and they need to make ends meet. So we have a local, it's called the gemach. Gemach stands for Gemilut Chasadim. I'll teach you this word, and once and for all, it's quite a...
We learned with our listening.
Yeah? So gemach, it's not really a word. It stands for Gemilut is one word, and Gemilut Chasadim is just the plural of chesed, and what that means is chesed, of course, is kindness or charity, and Gemilut is a funny word. It means giving. It's a special word of in Hebrew, giving is latet, but there's a few verbs. This one is specifically used for chesed, for giving chesed. Gemilut chasadim, ligmol chesed. You don't say, you can also say la'asot, to do chesed. Usually you say ligmol. It's a fancy verb. So giving kindness. So what is a gemach? A gemach is usually it's a type of a fund or a society which takes upon itself a particular area to focus on. As a matter of fact, I can find for you, they have a, it's especially developed in the religious communities. You have these types of funds for almost anything. You have a gemach for chickpeas. There's chickpeas. It's a humusim. There's a custom that on the night, the first Shabbat, after having a baby boy, you have something called the Shalom Zachar, and the customary food is chickpeas. So these people say, this is my mitzvah. Every Friday, I'm going to make up a pot of chickpeas, and whoever has a baby can come and take the chickpeas for free. This is a gemach. Then you have a gemach of wedding gowns. Wedding gowns can be very expensive. For a bride, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, even more. And not everybody can afford that. And so you have someone takes upon themselves this mitzvah, and they make a fund of, they gather used bridal gowns, and they loan them out for free. It's a beautiful gemach. Then there's a gemach of money, of course. Usually a free loan society. There is one in yeshiva, good. And where I live, there's also a gemach, which helps poor people from the community. So everybody knows there's, one or two, three people that are in charge, and if they have particular, or the social worker knows that they're having financial trouble, they go to them and they offer help, and they ask for help. And then, so they run such a service on Purim. If you give the money, we're going to distribute it on Purim. They go around to families in our neighborhood who I don't know who they are. It's all very private. But like I said, they're not living on the street, but maybe their refrigerator is empty. And so that's a good way to fulfill the mitzvah of matanot lehavyonim through an agent. The gemach, there's a local gemach, and then there's national gemachs, and then there's gemach. It's like a tzedakah fund. It's just a fancy word. Gemilut chasadim, giving of kindness of different kinds. It's hilarious. Some people, I'm going to make a gemach of cell phone chargers. Sometimes you need your phone charged and you just don't have the right kind. So this person says, I'm going to be Mr. Phone Chargers. Everybody should know in the yeshiva, whoever needs to charge their phone, I got all kinds. I got the USB-C, and I got the iPhone, and I got it all, and I'm happy to help people for free. I'll lend it to you. Give it back. There's upstairs in the Beit Midrash, in the back of the Beit Midrash, there's a gemach for tefillin. Also, I was thinking more of pens and pencils. Right? It's for free. Whoever wants to. Someone takes it upon themselves. They replenish every once in a while. I didn't bring my pen today. What do I use? So you go to the gemach. Yeah.
I think become the gemach of change for the laundry machine.
That's
I
it.
poured 1 shekel and 5 shekel coins.
Okay. Good. Okay. It's a nice gemach. Very good. Anyways, on Purim, many times they're the local gemach that knows the poor people already because they have a continuing relationship. That's the best way to, give the gifts to the poor if you don't know them personally. Yeah.
This word gemach, is it a Yiddish word?
No, it's an acronym made from 2 Hebrew words. Gemilut Chasadim is Hebrew, and this is just the first 2 letters here, Gimel Mem, and Chet goes here, and this one goes here, so it's an acronym.
So what's the difference between giving with kindness and giving to kindness?
No difference. It's just a fancy Hebrew word for instead of saying la'asot chesed or latet chesed, you say ligmol chesed, right? There's 3 Hebrew verbs. Asa is to do. There's latet. What's the? I think the root is natan, maybe netina, and then we're talking about another root. Gimel, Mem, Lamed. These are the Hebrew verbs that can be used for giving something or for doing chesed, right? So the more poetic and the classic use of it is we say it in our prayers.
was it Gomel? Is this
Gomi.
related?
This is it. This is it. Exactly.
What is it
What do we
related?
say in our prayers? Ata, in the second section of the Amidah, Ata Gibor L'Olam Hashem. L'chaim Eitim. Right, we say Gomel Chasadim Tovim. Gomel Chasadim Tovim. That's it. Gemilut Chasadim. Gomel Chasadim. That's just another, conjugation of the verb Gimel Mem Lamed. Gomel Chasadim Tovim means he gives or he does nice, good kindness for us, acts of kindness. Okay, loving kindness is many times the translation. Anyways, back to our halachot summary. How must Mishloach Manot be fulfilled? What do you got, Ravid? What do you got for number?
2 gifts of food to friends in order to increase love.
Excellent.
Love between the Jews on Purim is very important. It needs to be food
Mm-hmm.
because it increases the love between the Jews. Amen. It's not only for the poor people, also for the poor, people they already have, but
Good.
you can
Increases the love.
increase it. But the food needs to be cooked.
Or readily easy to cook. Can you give what's that called? Menachem in Hebrew. What's that called in English? In English, yeah.
To eat meal.
Yeah, a cup of the stuff you just add water. Yeah, ramen or something like that. Is that kosher? Well, yes, it's instant enough. Yeah, it's close enough.
Instant.
It's very easy. It's not like something that has, give a piece of I don't know.
Frozen.
Yeah, it could take too long to prepare. You won't be for the day. Yeah.
Just bring them a lamb. Yo, here, take this. So holy for your.
Anything else, Ravid, that you wrote down for Mishloach Manot? Any other laws?
Okay, so you just pour spices on the lamb.
Go ahead, Ravid.
Like on the
No, that's all.
That's it. Very good. Okay. Mishloach Manot. How and when do we do the Mishteh? David, what did you get for number 4?
for the good. So it must be on daytime, not on the night.
Good.
And one should be so drunk that you cannot differentiate between cursed be Haman and blessed be Mordechai.
Good. We're going to get to more about the drinking in a minute, but tell me more about the meal. When? You said in the daytime. And how? How else? Other than drinking, what else are there requirements of Seuda or Mishteh?
It should be preferable wine.
Good. Again, you're on the drinking. Right. It does say that you should be wash. You should wash. Make a kovea Seuda with bread. Right?
Like a full, like on Shabbat.
Yes.
Should be more than usual.
Okay. Okay. There also that says that you should ideally rejoice with others and invite people who don't have to. Yeah. There's other things he mentioned. For example, you should have seeds. There's a custom to eat seeds, like Daniel and his colleagues, and Esther probably did that too. And enhance the joy with others if possible. And if possible, eat meat. Most people, enjoy a meat meal, so don't skimp on the Purim meal. Very good. Okay, the mitzvah to drink is number 6. Ariel's here just in time. How much do we drink? So David, you mentioned this line from the Gemara. So you can't differentiate between Haman and Mordechai. Cursed is Haman, blessed Mordechai. So what does that mean?
So it could be understood literally that one drinks so much as that he becomes unconscious, because it's so drunk.
Right.
Or one drinks a little bit, becomes a little bit sleepy, and then goes to bed, and then
when he's sleeping, you don't understand. Okay. Good. Okay. Good. Anything else? Anybody else want to say about drinking? How much to drink? You want to add?
I read a person is obligated to get drunk on Purim until he does not know the difference between cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai.
Good job.
And it's mitzvah to drink on all the holidays, but don't drink too much. So what is too much? I think you still need to know what you are going to do and what you are saying.
Because you say it's important to not get so drunk that you're perhaps misbehave. Yes, Moshe?
So I think you mentioned that you should drink more than you usually would, even on Shabbos, even on a Chag. You should drink more than that on Purim. But it becomes problematic is if you get a little bit too far off, you can't daven.
Right, that's the next question.
Yeah.
So what did you want to say, Thomas, about how much you should drink?
So one must drink a bit more than the usual. As Father said, the main goal is to be happy. So,
Excellent. That's a great simple answer. A little more than usual, in order to get happy. That's really the goal of drinking, is to commemorate the joy. And as David said, of course, some people take it literally and say you have to drink a lot. But some people say as long as you drink a little more than usual, that's enough. Someone else wanted to comment on this about how much you should drink. Russell, you wanted to say? Yeah.
Noted that it's permissible to fulfill the obligation to not distinguish between blessed, mortifying, cursive, command by getting a little drowsy by drinking and then falling asleep.
Right, David mentioned that as well. Good. What else? I think something I said, I want to make sure that someone at least says it, is that you have to know yourself. And to know that the drinking will not lead you to, we said, Nichnas yain yatsa sod, if wine comes in, the secrets come out. Right. So if your secrets are dark and disgusting, we don't want them coming out. But if they're beautiful and holy, then there's more room to be lenient and to be, allow yourself to go a little wild. But you have to know yourself and to know also how much your body can take physically. Some people have a low, threshold of tolerance, for alcohol. Some have higher, so it's really a personal question exactly how to do it. Okay, now there's some comment. You wanted to say something else? Oh, no.
I was going to ask, was that the opinion of the Rambam?
The Rambam spoke about falling asleep and not knowing. Yeah, drink a little more and falling asleep. Good, yeah. Next, how much can one pray after drinking? So this is what Moshe was going to, that direction.
As far as I understood from your shiur and from the book, if you can feel the alcohol, you're still able to pray. However, if you get to a point where you're tipsy, it becomes problematic. And if you're flat out drunk, that you probably won't be able to stand up during the Amida and behave yourself, you should not pray.
Good. I mean, it's hard to define. It's a continuum. But there were 3 categories in halacha. First one he called was tipsy, and that you shouldn't pray. But if you do, you still fulfill your obligation. This next one was, he called it drunk, not just tipsy, but drunk, and that you're not allowed to pray. And if you do pray, it's not considered, and that's when you can't behave respectfully in front of the king. You shouldn't pray. You're not allowed to, and it's not valid if you do. And the third level of drunk is drunkenness like lot, I believe he called it, right? Yeah. And that is, you can't even say brachot. Then you have a definition of someone who's temporarily mentally ill, and you can't do anything. So religious rituals, you're not considered to be a responsible adult at that point. And so those are the 3 levels. So you got to be sure that you can say the prayers. You have benching, you have brachot, and then you have mincha. Usually most people daven mincha first before they have the meal in the afternoon. And that way, even if they get a little drunk, they've already fulfilled their obligation. By the time Marav comes around, then they will sober up. Okay, you had a question, Michael?
Yeah, because I write like this, but I want to know if it's good. I write down like, one who's drunk and tipsy may not pray, but is allowed to say berachot. Is that true?
Well, those are 2 categories. In the book that we learned, tipsy was a category that you are not allowed to, but it's still valid. And drunk is you're not even allowed to pray, to do the Amidah we're talking about, the Amidah. Very good. Okay, number 8. How does one make the Suda on Friday, when Purim comes out on Friday, like for Jerusalemites this year? And why? Anybody have an answer, want to share their answer with us on that?
Friday we must have the Purim Soda before afternoon in order to arrive to the Shabbos meal with appetite.
Excellent. That's one opinion.
Yes.
The major opinion. I suggest that if you are running your own home and you're able to, but sometimes you're a guest, sometimes you're not, things are not up to you, but there is, so what's the other opinion? What's the other system, which many people do? I just want you to be aware of it, and maybe you'll choose at one point that you feel that this is a great...
On top of the table of the Purim Soda, they put another tablecloth, they say the Kiddush, and then they restart to eat.
Right, so essentially you have the meal in the afternoon, Friday afternoon. Even though Shabbat is coming, usually you're all prepared for Shabbat. You dress up in your finest. In any case, for Purim, you should be dressing up in fine clothes, not just wearing everyday clothes if you're not in costume, which we'll get to in a minute. But it's going to be Shabbat in any case, so you're definitely dressing and then you start your meal 4 in the afternoon, whatever it is, and then when Shabbat comes, you don't really stop the meal. You sort of blend it into, becomes the Shabbat meal. You have to stop when it gets dark and make Kiddush.
Right.
But you don't say Bor Pragafen because you already drank. But Hamotzi, you can't say Hamotzi either because you already said Hamotzi. We said to start off your Purim meal. And so you say Kiddush with a bracha, but not the bracha on the wine.
Yeah.
And then on the Hamotzi, you take the 2 loaves, but you don't make Hamotzi. You just cut a new loaf of bread, and then you have to eat the requisite amount of bread for the Shabbat meal after you've already eaten a requisite amount for the Purim meal. So you sort of blend the 2 meals into one. It's called Pores Mapa Umekadesh. That's a term you probably hear about it. It's in Hebrew, Pores Mapa Umekadesh. I'll write that in English, just a little clearer here. Pores, mapa. Mapa is, what did we say mapa means?
Tablecloth.
Right, so to spread, pores, the tablecloth, and then of course mekadesh is, and make kiddush. Make kiddush. So you sort of stop in the middle, sort of cover over the meal, and make your kiddush, and then you continue the meal essentially afterwards. That's the second system, which a lot of Hasidim do. Different families choose to do that because it's so unique. It happens only once every few years, and so it's special and exciting to be eating on a Friday afternoon, and then not going to shul. Usually, people don't go to shul at that. Maybe they have a later minyan for Arvit after the meal. You don't stop in the middle necessarily. You can, it depends if you have a minyan or not. Anyways, those are the 2 systems for working on Friday. The simplest one, of course, is to have your meal earlier in the morning, and you make sure you do Mishloach Manot quickly and read the Megillah as soon as you can, with all the different readings of the Megillah for the men, for the women, for this community, that community, etc. Okay, number 9, of course, was about dressing up. What does someone want to share with us about that?
Many poskim maintain that a man may not dress up as a woman and vice versa. There you go.
That's true. That's the simple law, that you're not allowed to dress like a woman.
Is there really not enough?
But what you're leaving out, of course, is that there is a lot of sources that relate to us that this was the custom in many communities, in Germany, in Ashkenazi world, that they were lax about that law for the sake of joviality and happiness on Purim. And dressing up, also, you should probably start off that this whole idea of dressing up doesn't appear in the Talmud. It's not an obligation, but it's a very ancient custom that the Jewish people dressed up on Purim. And in order to fulfill this custom, the question is, how far can we go? Can we go so far in that we actually maybe violate the Torah commandment? So, although it's surprising, there are some communities where this was the practice, that it was not considered to be, of course, in the context, it's not considered to be something that goes against the tzniut, or it's not about mixing of the sexes. It's just another way of having fun. and so it's allowed by some poskim, but disapproved by
Does
others.
community exist until now?
Sure. I'd say most communities, there's going to be someone who, it's the easiest costume.
But it's not a duty to dress up, right?
It's not a duty. No, not. It's a custom. We try to keep our customs, but it's definitely.
It's not a mitzvah.
I don't think. No, it's not one of the 4 mitzvot of Purim.
Right.
You do the Megillah. You fulfilled your obligations of Purim. You don't have to dress up, but it is a nice custom, and see if you feel like it. But of course, don't do anything that's going to offend anybody either. But it's the easiest costume. You take a skirt from your wife, you take a wig, and you put it on your head. Oh, I'm a woman, ha ha ha! And then I have a beard. I'm the bearded lady. Whereas, to be Superman, you have to find a cape, and you have to find the letter S, and so it's a little bit harder to make a costume. So people take the easy way out, and they just throw on a dress. And it's a costume, and it's funny, of course. So that's why a lot of people do it. But
I did that once for Halloween. I had an old rocking chair. With the rocking chair out front.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to hand out candy, and my mother had this maternity dress. I don't know where she got it from, but it fit me. I put on that and a wig.
Okay.
And
all right, sounds funny. In the Machon, many students dress up, and many don't. I don't think it's an absolute.
Feel free.
Feel free, whatever you feel like doing. Yeah.
So question, I'm sure we already answered this before, but I forgot. Why do we dress up at all?
Oh, good, very good. Well, why dress up in the first place? Why did this custom develop?
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't come from the Talmud, it doesn't. So I think the answer is that the theme on Purim that we have a lot, of course, enjoyment, but also more specifically, V'nahafochu, excellent. V'nahafochu, that's what I was going to say. It says in the Purim story that, Haman had his whole plan to hang Mordechai, and he built a gallows 50 amot high in his yard in order to hang Mordechai from it. And what happened in the end?
Haman was hung from it.
God flipped it over. And instead of Mordechai hanging, Haman was hanged. So the Megillah makes a big point. V'nahafochu. And we sing that. It's a very popular Purim song. V'nahafochu asher yishlatu ha'yudim heima b'saneim, that the Jews should be subjugating their enemies instead of the enemies persecuting us. And so this idea of flipping.
It's kind of a mockery, kind of.
Well, it's sort of playing on the theme of the holiday. The holiday is how terrible calamity and threat of destruction turned in one moment into tremendous victory and a place for celebration. And so one other reason why. So of course, clearly that doing something different and changing things around is based on this pasuk in the Megillah where it says v'nahafochu, that things got flipped over. So you do something backwards. I know people that dress up, they put their shirt, the buttons in the back, right? Backwards man, okay? Whatever it is. Then there's the other idea is something I mentioned really, if you remember, way back in the first session about Purim. We spoke about why did the Jews deserve to be killed? Why did fine, God saved us. But what was the problem in the first place that put us in this peril, in this danger? And the Gemara had two answers. One was the students of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and then Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai himself. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, well, it's because they bowed down to the idol. There were idols in the Persian Empire that they were forced to bow down to, and many Jews did. And so the students asked, so then why were they saved? Idol worship is really bad. It makes sense that they should be destroyed. What's the point of the Jewish people if they're worshiping idols? Reminds us of Parshat HaShavua, right? And what did the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai answer? He said, they only did it on the exterior, but not inside. Like the classic Marranos in Spain, right, who had to proclaim their allegiance to Christianity, but they didn't really mean it. And secretly they would light the Shabbat candles in a cellar. You know what I'm talking about? The stories. Till today, we have people that are descendants of this type of, what are they called? Crypto Jews. So that's idea. Crypto coins nowadays out there. and so this is, I think, a central theme as well, is that sometimes our externals don't express what's inside. And what we're celebrating is that even though the Jews maybe look like they're assimilating, and they look like they're maybe secular, they look like they don't know anything or care about Judaism, really, inside, there's the Pintele Yid, it's called in Yiddish, the little drop, the little spark of Judaism, of having a Jewish neshama, of having a Jewish soul, and that's what we're celebrating, that coming out. And so this inside versus outside is mentioned by the Gemara, by this answer, is that, for sure they bowed down to the idol, but they didn't mean it inside, and that's what matters. And so we have dressing up sort of plays on that theme of, I'm not really a pirate, but I dress up like a pirate. It's a show. It's a masquerade.
Okay.
It's a masquerade. So I'm not really the
I'm not really a Hadassah.
that's it. I'm not really the secularized, maybe sinner that I am. Inside, I'm really a good person. So the costumes and the masquerade seem to be fitting with the themes, these two issues that I mentioned about Purim. That's why the custom developed. Or another reason the custom developed is because we want everybody to have fun, and the kids like to have fun. The kids like to dress up, and so it's sort of. But I think it's something deeper, and it is connected to the holiday Purim. I try to dress up every year, at least for part of the day. It's a long day, and
We're looking forward for this.
Okay, yes, absolutely. Every year you got to think of a costume. That's how to prepare for Purim. Let's finish up chapter 17 before we run out of time. How is a walled city defined? Right, we talked about that there's Purim on the 15th of Adar instead of the 14th on a walled city. How do you define a walled city? Who can answer me? Michael.
A city is considered a walled city if the city had a wall during the time of Yehoshua ben Nun.
Excellent. Good. And which cities do we know for sure had a wall?
Jerusalem and Shushan.
Right, so Shushan, even though it didn't have a wall in the times of Jerusalem,
they
it has the law of the 15th, right? Good. So Hebron is doubtful. It's doubtful. We're going to ask them about it this Shabbat. I hope you're all coming for Shabbat. Yeah? In Hebron?
Are you coming?
Yes. Zat Hashem, we're going to have Shabbat together. I'm very excited about it. It should be great. Zat Hashem. Okay, so how far does Jerusalem extend and why? Who wrote down a good answer for this one? I don't see everybody wrote here. Ariel, did you write, or you're looking at other things? You wrote on your phone? Almost, you didn't write down the answers. Yeah, homework is time. But you have it. Okay, so how far does Jerusalem extend then, even without writing down?
It's right now it's behind the wall, but not too far. Where is the separation between the city? That's what I understand.
You understand well in vague general terms, but I want a little more specific. Okay, but I need some more specifics. Okay. This is halacha. We need to try to define it a little better.
So included Ramot and Hanov.
That's a good question, but I want the principle. What does the Talmud say about the extension? Obviously, there's a wall, and what about just outside the wall? Adjacent, samuch, and the Talmud says, and mir'eh. It's adjacent, and you can see. And the question is, how do we define those neighborhoods? What does adjacent mean? How close does it have to be? And why, sight? So obviously, if you have Jerusalem's on a hill, so if you're down in the valley, you can't see it. It's up on top of the hill. But if it's adjacent, if it's close enough, it's good enough. And then you have the opposite, maybe with you have another hill, which is farther away, and you can see Jerusalem, but it's not so close. So it sounds like we need
Are you talking about the gap of 141?
That's right. Good.
141
Good.
amos.
141 amot. Very good. If there's a gap of continuous residences of more than 141 amot, it's considered to be separate, a separate neighborhood. Although this is a matter of debate in modern times. Why? Because today we have other considerations as well. What considered to be part of the city? What are they? What the poskim mentioned? We said two taxes, municipal taxes, and the other one. What was the other consideration?
If they were built from old city.
Not necessarily. The materials don't really change the matter, but
the extended from
the eruv we mentioned. The eruv. It's within the eruv. That might be something which joins it, even though it's a little bit. There's a little bit of a break in the housing. So therefore, there's doubtful cities. Some neighborhoods are in doubt. And what do you do? That's number 3. What do you do in cities that are in doubt if they're walled or not? Or neighborhoods which are doubtful whether they're considered to be part of Jerusalem, for example. What's the law?
Residents of cities that are in doubt if they are from Waller City or not celebrate Alon Purim.
Celebrate what?
Alon Purim.
Which Purim?
Long Purim.
Long Purim?
Yeah.
Like 2 days?
No, not necessarily. I think the simple law is that they celebrate on the 14th. When in doubt, you go back to the 14th.
Yeah, see. For example, they read the Megillah on the 13th with the Beracha, and even on the 15th without.
Good. So the truth is, that's a good stringency. That's a good stringency that you do both. And that's what you're saying, long. I understand. But primarily they read it with the bracha on the 14th because unless we know, we don't switch the day. And many people do. Also, these communities, the neighborhoods of Jerusalem, many do both days just to be sure, but without a bracha. I think the most common now is, you mentioned Ramot and Harnof. Most common is, I think, that they celebrate on the 15th with a bracha, and then the 14th without. On the 14th without. Usually, I think that's the common custom. Okay, next. What else? Let's go back to the. What's the next question?
If one travels between cities, when does he become obligated?
That's right. If you're traveling on Purim. So how do we work this? Because it's quite complicated. There's many opinions. But Rabbi Melamed, he took the short route. He just had one page, and he put in the footnotes, this is very complicated. I could write a book about it, but it's not for now. And the simple law is, therefore, rule of thumb. What was his rule of thumb? What was his basic principle for when you're obligated to celebrate on the 14th?
Wherever you are on the 14th, that determines where you are.
Close. Before dawn, yeah. But what did he say? So I want to make it a little more precise, Moshe. What he wrote was that the morning of the 14th, if you are in a city that celebrates on the 14th, you'll be obligated to celebrate with them if you're there at the beginning of the day, because that's when the obligations devolve upon you. And if you happen to be in Jerusalem, a place that celebrates on the 15th, on the morning of the 15th, then you become obligated in Jerusalem. There's 2 moments of obligation, 2 days, 2 separate ones. One day of definition is for the unwalled cities, and that's the 14th in the morning, and one day is the 15th in the morning. That's the way he presented it. There's other opinions, of course, but it's pretty easy to understand that way, is that you become a Jerusalemite on the 15th in the morning, you become a Tekoite on the 14th in the morning, and if you plan to go somewhere and you stay over, your physical presence is going to be overriding your thoughts, your intentions, and what you have to be careful about is that moment of dawn, which is an hour before sunrise, approximately. Yeah.
Okay, so if let's say you're in an unwalled city on the 14th in the morning, but the next day you're going to be in Jerusalem in the morning.
Some people say you have 2 Purims.
2? Okay.
And therefore you have to fulfill all the mitzvot of Purim, both on the 14th and on the 15th. Some people say that's impossible. You can't have 2 days of Purim.
So you
but some say you do. So you have to be careful. You have to. If you are in the morning of the 15th in Jerusalem, even after you celebrated one Purim, you should make sure to celebrate all the other. But also, you should really plan this. I mentioned yesterday, because if you are planning to be the morning of the 15th in Jerusalem, you got to get there earlier, because you really should be reading the Megillah at night, the night of the 15th, even as well as the night of the 14th. You've fulfilled your mitzvah on the 14th. You read the Megillah twice. But if you know you're going to have a second Purim, you're going to have to read the Megillah 4 times. Right? Once again on the night of the 15th, once again on the morning of the 15th. If you just, if you know you're going to be sleeping over, you got to make sure to get to Jerusalem early enough so that you catch a Megillah reading at night as well, because you really should be doing 4. So that's something to plan for. Okay, so we're done with the laws of Purim. Mazal tov. Shakoach. Are you ready? Are you ready to party?
Where's your brains?
Okay, so we're going to party on Purim. But in the meantime, we can put away these books, because we're about to start. It's very exciting. These books that have never been opened before here in Machon Meir, at least not in my class. These books, we're finishing them. We closed them. At least there are a separate whole series of books on Pesach. It's over here in the festivals section. There's a section on festivals, by the way. And there are many books here about Purim. There's many books about Purim, many books about each and every festival, but there's also many books about Pesach. In particular, we have these, Pnei Halacha and the Laws of Pesach, which we're going to try to cover in the coming few weeks before we have a break. You got a haircut?
Yeah, I was yesterday in your house. I've been in the building, man.
Oh yeah?
Yes. What's my name?
Asher.
Yeah, Asher.
He's a good guy. I love 20 seconds.
Okay, Laws of Pesach, open up. As you can see, it's a 300-page book, almost 270 pages.
Should I get you the haircut? Should I get you the haircut?
Yes,
Yeah?
actually, I'm.
Yesterday.
Yes, yesterday.
We'll start off on page 1. It's a good place to start. The truth is, hopefully we won't have to study here the laws of chapter 10 and 11 until we're covering that in the halacha class. The laws of kashrut. We're learning about the laws of kashering a kitchen and the principles involved and the details involved. So we're going to have a little bit of overlap here. Chapter 10 and 11 here, talk about that in the context of Pesach. Quite similar laws though, but you get into much greater detail here in the laws of Pesach than in the other halacha class. But preparing for, we still have 16 chapters, so the 2 of them we won't have to learn in such great detail. But the other 14, there's a lot to learn. Bezrat Hashem will get started about the holiday of Pesach. The Jewish year has, when's Rosh Hashanah? The beginning of the new year. First of Tishrei. Rosh Hashanah. That's like the high holidays they're called. But the truth is, as we mentioned in our 4 parshiot, the last of the 4 parshiot is called Parashat HaChodesh, and that introduces that the Torah did something very unique and said, when is Rosh Hashanah? It's in September. That's the beginning of the school year. That's the beginning of the agricultural cycle. People, plant and get ready for the rainy season, so that, at least in the northern hemisphere, where the Torah was written for, focused on Eretz Yisrael, in the northern hemisphere. So really, the beginning of the year, of course, is in September. It's in, that's what we call it, September. But it's in the fall, right after the summer. The fall is that's the beginning of the year. And yet, the Torah says that's not going to be, we're going to call that Rosh Hashanah. For many issues, that is the beginning of the year. And we have holidays, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. What other holiday do we have in Tishrei? Sukkot as well. So that's, You could call that the headquarters of the year, or the head of the year. It's called Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year. So here we have RH stands for Rosh Hashanah. This is the head of the year. And then, but the year, as we know, is a cycle. There's another head of the year. Some people would call it the tail. We don't call it the tail, because what happened exactly 6 months later? Right, Sukkot is the 15th of Tishrei, right? 15th of Tishrei. What holiday do we have 6 months later on the 15th of Nisan? We have Pesach. So the two major holidays, Shavuot is, 50 days later. 50 days later. Right? So it's like an extension of Pesach.
Okay.
Really, the two major holidays.
And Sukkot is like an extension of Rosh Hashanah. So.
Yeah, or Sukkot has 8 days. There's 7 days of Sukkot, and then the 8th day is called Atzeret. Here we have 7 days of Pesach, just like 7 days of Sukkot, and then instead of the 8th day being Atzeret, it takes 7 weeks, not 7 days. We have 7 weeks, and then we have Atzeret, the Shavuot. But essentially what I'm trying to show you is focus that the year is divided into two, right? We have the first half of the year and the second half of the year. But which is first? So if Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year, so that's the first half. But along came the Torah and said, on 1 of Nisan is, in many ways, this is going to be the first of the months. This is the head of the year when it comes to the months. That's called why we read something called Parashat HaChodesh just before the first of Nisan. It's a little bit like Rosh Hashanah. It's the beginning of the year. So we have two halves of the year, really. This is call that the first one if you're focusing on the years. Call this the first half if you're speaking about the months. The first month is not at the beginning of the year. It's a little bit complicated. So, but this is the way it works. And why does the Torah make such a big deal of, call it the tail, but obviously a circle, just turn it around and it's on top. How do you know which is the real Rosh Hashanah? The Torah. Why does the Torah make such a big deal about the first of Nisan? When it's 6 months into the agricultural cycle, it started in Tishrei. Nisan is springtime. It's not a normal start of the year, springtime. What's the answer? Amos.
I don't know if it's the answer, but I'm thinking.
What are you thinking?
That the life is not just about food and body; it's also the spiritual thing.
Good. Yes.
This is the year.
And what spiritually happened at this time?
We got freedom and we became a nation.
Exactly. This is the birth of the Jewish people and the birth of redemption. Redemption started in this month. So this is maybe the creation of the world, and this is the redemption of the world. So it's a new start, fresh start. Very important religious moment that the Jewish people are created. Yes?
Like two aspects, right? Like the first is the birth of the physical man, like beginning of Adam, and there's the spiritual birth, like you have to be on another level.
That's right. I like it.
But
Sure. Yeah.
What I also found funny is like me, like growing up in Europe, we teach like the New Year is in December and stuff.
Right. Well, you know why that's there? Because somebody's birthday. There's nothing connected to the natural world. It's not connected to the cycle.
Well, it's a celebration of the winter solstice. It's pagan.
Right.
It's a pagan.
Right.
Holiday.
Okay.
Secular New Year.
Yes, because
might be connected.
You had the god with the name like January, and you had two heads, one old and one young.
Really?
So Roman god. That's why they call it like that. But the funny thing is, like, if you go to in Aviv, in Nisan, the spring, there you see like everything is new, like new animals being born.
True. We do see in nature that after the winter, usually springtime, the Torah says you must celebrate Pesach in springtime. So that redemption of the world is when the plants wake up. The plants, that were inside the earth and maybe frozen, are coming back to life, and the trees start to flower, and it's a beautiful renewal of life in the springtime. So that's appropriate for redemption, for coming to life of the Jewish people. Yes, Thomas.
Oh, well, just to share that I have a friend from here in the yeshiva that was born in Nisan. His first name is Aviv, second name Nisan, and surname Nisani.
Aviv Nisan Nisani. Very cool. Very cool. All right, let's take a look at page 1. We'll start the meaning of the holiday of Pesach. Other than my introduction, let's see how Melamed puts it together, and we'll start reading. Russell, why don't you read for us today, please?
The festival of Matzot and the festival of Pesach. The holiday of Pesach has two different names in the Torah. Chag HaMatzot, the festival of Matzot, and Chag HaPesach, the Paschal festival or Passover. These two names express two different meanings of the holiday. Chag HaMatzot represents the revelation of God's providence, and Chag HaPesach represents Israel's unique spiritual capacity. At the Exodus from Egypt, God's sovereignty over the world was given its most apparent and concrete manifestation. Thus, our faith in God is fundamentally rooted in the Exodus. The matzah symbolizes this aspect of our holiday, as we read in the Haggadah. This matzah that we eat, what is the reason? Because our forefathers' dough did not have time to rise before the Holy Supreme King of Kings revealed himself to them and redeemed them. The unique mission and destiny of the people of Israel was also revealed at the time of the Exodus. The distinction between the Egyptians and the Israelites was conspicuous in all of the plagues, as the Egyptians were struck and the Israelites were saved. This culminated with the plague of the firstborn, when the destroyer struck every Egyptian household but passed over the Sah Israelite homes. Israel's uniqueness is expressed through and symbolized by the Paschal sacrifice. These two fundamental principles, faith and Israel, are linked together and interdependent. Unlike the other nations, which are formed through human endeavor, the nation of Israel was forged through divine miracles and wonders at the time of the Exodus for the purpose of receiving God's Torah. Israel's status entirely depends on their connection with God. When Israel does God's will and makes God's name manifest in the world, they earn all the blessings promised in the Torah. But when they do not fulfill God's will, all of the curses written in the Torah are visited upon them. The revelation of God's name in the world, i.e., the manifestation of divine values on earth, depends upon Israel. As Scripture states, I created this nation for my sake, they will tell my praise. Yeshayahu 43:21. For this reason, the sages stated in Bereshit Rabbah 1:4 that the idea of Israel preceded the creation of the world. For it is through Israel that the purpose of the world is revealed. This is what the sages meant when they said, God set a condition with creation. If Israel accepts the Torah, you will continue to exist, but if not, then I will return you to being formless and void. Israel's unique capabilities were further made manifest in that God chose us to be his nation and children, in spite of the fact that we were lowly slaves, stuck in the morass of impurity in Egypt. Thus, the two biblical names of the holiday express two aspects of one matter, namely the revelation of God's name in the world through Egypt. Through Israel. Through the Exodus from Egypt, Israel, yeah.
Okay. Chag HaMatzot is one name, and Chag HaPesach. So the way Rav Melamed writes it is that, first of all, you may not realize that these are on two separate days. Chag HaPesach, the Pesach was brought on the 14th of Nisan. It was eaten on the night of the 15th, which, lasts till the 21st, right? 7 days. So this is 7 days and this is 1 day, Chag HaPesach. But usually when we say Pesach, we refer to the entire 7 days as well. So what are these two names? Even if you're not going to be so precise and say Chag HaPesach is the 14th, they both refer to the holiday in general. What are the meaning of the holiday? So Rav Melamed points out that perhaps the matzah is connected to the revelation of God, revelation of God, and Chag HaPesach you could call, the way he describes it is a celebration of the role of Israel. Israel plays a part in this plan that God has. God reveals himself to the Jewish people in particular. So we have God and we have Israel. There's two different focuses or foci of the holiday. It's the same holiday. Chag HaMatzot, Chag HaPesach has two names in the Torah because there's two aspects to it. One aspect is that God revealed himself. That's all this equals redemption. It's the holiday of redemption. Chag HaGeulah, redemption, the name that what we celebrate. Maybe that's what, why we have a whole new month. The calendar year starts with because of the redemption, the Geula. There's two parts to it. The Geula comes when God reveals himself and Israel gets born, right? The nation of Israel. Beforehand, we had the forefathers, families, but not an entire nation. So this is you could call it the triangle of redemption. God and Israel, the two names for Pesach. It's a nice way to start. We'll continue to learn about Pesach, B'ezrat Hashem, in the coming days and weeks. Okay? Stop here for today. Thank you.